You're listening to The Space Race. This is a show where we explore emerging technologies with experts from the industry. This season is dedicated to voice and all its different facets. If you're into voice and you'd like to learn more, stay tuned. This month is all about voice and search. I've been fascinated about voice search ever since I met my co-host, Tim Jansen.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Tim. We met in the office and we both asked each other, what do you do? And we said both voice. And
Turned out to be totally different.
yeah, there's different ways of talking about voice, and I thought I knew everything. Maybe you did too, but it turned out we both knew half of it, because I come from the experience side and you come from the search side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so during this month we're going to explore everything about voice and search, and we're going to do this through inviting experts. With us in the room is Max Prin.
Hey Sam, hey Tim.
Hey Max, great to have you here. You are a colleague from the US side of Merkle.
That's right. Well, like my accent sounds like I'm originally from France, but I now live in the US, where I lead the Technical SEO team at Merkle. And so my role is to work with all of our clients around the most technical topics and challenges. It goes from structured data markup to site latency in general, like working with developers and like on the technical implementation on the website. So really like the basic of search and how search engines work. It's really crawling, indexing, now rendering, and then ranking. I work less on the ranking side of things, like less on the keywords aspect content, and more on the making the website accessible to search engines, so proper crawling and indexing. So, but always fascinated about any new topics like voice search or things that did not exist a few years ago, even though search engines have been around for 20 years. But new topics always fascinating from a technical standpoint, like web technologies and all of that.
When did you first encounter voice as an interface for search?
So Alexa devices and Amazon have been around like for quite a bit. I think Google had not a hard time, but they took their time to enter the market. One thing that they did well, they entered the European market before Alexa and Amazon, but in the US they were far behind. And Alexa devices were more about like voice actions and things, home automations, and less on the search side. The search result from asking Alexa devices queries and things were not ideal. Some of them were powered by being for pre-recorded queries, but really I think it became like really interesting when the Google technology, the Google search technology came into the space with like Google Assistant. And so I think really like the industry, including ourselves at Merkle, became really interested for ourselves and our clients when Google Assistant like entered the space.
So this is, if we're going back, I think Alexa was announced in 2014 and they arrived with devices in 2015, if I'm
Sounds
not mistaken.
about right.
Yeah, and then we have Google Assistant, which launched in 2016,
Yes.
quite a bit later.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a bit later for sure. And again, I remember like in 2017, about like a little bit over 2 years ago, I was in Paris for a marketing conference, and I had brought with me Google Home, one of the first version of the Google Home, as well as the Alexa Echo device. And so I had both of those things on stage with me, and that was really interesting for the audience in Paris because none of those devices were available in Europe. And there was a couple weeks before Google Home, like the device was released in France, and I was able to live demo, which is never a good idea to do live demo on stage, but I decided to do it because it was kind of unique, and it worked pretty well.
So did you demo the search capabilities?
Yeah, I demoed like the Google and Alexa's like kind of like the basic differences into the responses that each assistant would have for normal queries around like facts. So it's less about like the normal search result that you would get from typing with the keyboard or searching with your phone. There's a big difference in that space between result from a device with a screen versus a device without a screen. And when you have a screen, even if you search with your voice, it's another way to input your query, but the way the device will respond will be similar to, if you have a screen, it's typing or searching with your voice, it's almost the same thing, because the result will look the same. And you can have different results, like multiple results. When you do not have like a screen, there is only one answer. There is one result, and that is obviously like through the device itself. So it's interesting to it was interesting to see what a Google Assistant versus Alexa chooses this one answer for the same query.
And what were the biggest differences between the results from Alexa and the Google Assistant?
The knowledge behind both like assistant. Basic, like if you ask like who's the French president, both will know, but Google will know more about like more difficult queries, or like I don't know, basics example where like as far as the moon, from Earth, or things like that, or depending how you formulate your question, like or Google more often than not will have a proper answer, versus Alexa will respond with, sorry, I cannot help with that, or I don't know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, that was 2 years ago. I think like things have changed like drastically, like in the last 2 years, and so.
So for those who are, like lots of people are listening, they're not necessarily SEO people. Can you maybe explain a bit more about the difference between searching online and searching via voice, besides the modality?
I think there's a lot of confusion in the data around like voice search and what is really the definition of voice search. I think people might think searching with your voice, it's not convenient in all situation. And so when you do research for, I don't know, like for school or for your work, or like you're not going to do that with your voice. But if you're like trying to find out when like the grocery store next to your house is going to close, so you're in your kitchen and you're running out of milk and you don't know if it's still open, you can ask Google, hey Google, when is the grocery store, like is the grocery store open? And Google will know what grocery store you're talking about, because it will give you the answer for the closest grocery store next to you, and it will tell you like XYZ grocery store is closing at 9 p.m. You have time, or something like that, which is really convenient. But so it's a search, but it's more about like finding out like a quick information in the same way you will search with your phone for the closest restaurant, like or in a town that you don't know. Those are more like local, with a local intent, like immediate information, versus like researching information around like complex, maybe more complex queries and topics. So I think, and when we looked at data that have been shared over the years around like usage of like voice search, I think people and the data was confusing around what type of query or what are the users doing really. If you ask Siri on your iPhone to call mom, this is not voice search. This is like you're using your voice to activate something on your phone, and that was kind of like skewing the data a little bit, because a lot of people ask Siri to send a text to someone, to call like a family member, or like or to add like a reminder to the phone, add something to the agenda. Those are like voice actions, or actions on the phone using your voice, and not like a real search from a search engine.
Can you maybe make it even more tangible? So there is actions, because one of the most popular things to do is set timers, play music.
Exactly.
Playing music is not search. Is it? I mean, like, can you have a definition of what do you consider voice search?
It could be, I don't know, for example, that would be, let's say you don't know the name of a song. So you can do two things. You can say, hey, Google, what is the latest song by U2? Or you can say, Google, play the latest song from U2. And it will just do two different things. Like the first one will tell you the latest song from U2 is blah blah blah. I don't know what it is, but and the other one will, if you have like if you're logged in your Google Music account or your Spotify account, it will just start playing that particular song, because Google will find out first in the back end. They will find out what songs you're talking about, and then they will play that song.
So there's a difference between voice search and voice control.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Is it
Voice
more
control,
of voice search than matching the customer intent and reaching out to Google's database instead of giving commandos?
I think so, yeah. I think really it's finding information versus controlling something. But the data is all blended together, unfortunately. I think maybe it's better right now, but at the time, it was really like when you had voice search data, you find out when you dig a little bit deeper that it was a lot about like, call my mom.
Yeah.
And which intents do you think are the most suitable for voice search?
I think quick facts, quick information, like, how tall is the Eiffel Tower? What's the capital of Brazil? Or like things that you might be talking to someone in the car or like in the living room and just like, oh yeah, have you seen that movie? And like, oh no, I don't remember. And like, what is the movie with like Morgan Freeman and Leonardo DiCaprio, if there was one, I don't know. But like, and Google will know because of those entities that are the same way Google works and other search engines. When you type on your keyboard, that's the same thing happening. They understand entities, and so they know that like Leonardo DiCaprio, Morgan Freeman are actors, and they're gonna match that together and find if there's a movie with both at the same time and give you back that information. I think that type of queries are really easy to use, like with voice. It's a quick information.
And that's because of the technical limitations or the technical capabilities that are there. What I hear when I hear you explain what good questions are, it's because of the capabilities of Google right now. And they are good at fact-based questions, and therefore they need to be very simple. There is not a lot of context known by Google for Google to answer, I don't know, what's next. Could be a very open question, but it might understand that it's about your calendar or, I don't know, getting the birthday present for your wife because it's your, I don't know, 9th anniversary.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Congratulations.
Today actually, yeah, thank you. I think it's more about the back to what you said, Tim, like about the user intent. People, and maybe there is like a balance to be found, like maybe the more the technology improve and the capabilities, and they will just teach people or make people want more, but for now maybe they don't expect like those assistants to do more, so they don't ask for more. But I think like it's just like the intent or like the needs of users like at any given time. I think that's why like those assistants, like either it's Siri or Google Assistant or Alexa, they've had like a hard time understanding how they can monetize those devices. For Alexa, it's a little bit different because Amazon being this huge marketplace, it's easier to integrate everything together and people to add to their shopping list. People do that a lot because it's convenient.
If we look at the voice assistant market, there are like various types. You're from the US, so you're like an Amazon market mostly. We're from the Netherlands, and that's where Google Assistant is the only available smart speaker option in Dutch, the only serious one. Can you maybe describe the differences between the voice assistants when it comes to search?
Yeah, so I because I'm kind of fascinated by those technologies, also with home automation. I have both in my house, so I have like, I'm not afraid of them listening to me if they are. I have like 5 or 6 Google Home in my house and like 2 or 3 Alexas that I use for different reasons, but really around home automation. And I think like I used to, like a lot of people, like I use them a lot to play music. I have Alexa controlling my TV because it's a Fire TV / Alexa combo. So I have like Amazon Cloud like cameras that I use as baby monitors in my kids' room, and so I use like Alexa devices to monitor those cameras, like for around the baby crib and things like that. So I use those like a lot for home automation and less for like search queries. But when I do, I have to admit that I will ask Google if I have a question around like, I don't know, sometimes, it can be like sitting on the couch with my wife talking about something and like wondering, you watch a movie and you wonder like, oh, there's Morgan Freeman. It feels like, so you would just ask Google for that and you get a quick answer.
I find that an interesting topic as well, that you have the Amazon Alexa for more the buying stuff, more the drive action phase, and the Google for all the information queries and providing information.
Well, I think it's a fair assessment to the marketplace. I mean, to the space here where you think about Amazon Marketplace and Google search engine information. So I think if you don't know a lot about like the capabilities or both assistant, like without knowing anything, you would think, okay, Amazon, it's really about where I buy things. Google, it's where like I find information.
And do you think that in, for example, 5 years, people have multiple voice assistants at home? So an Amazon Alexa for the marketplaces and the Google, or do you think one will win the war?
I don't know if one will win, but I know people in general, they don't have both. I know like it's redundant. I have both because I'm interested in this technology, and like I feel like it's part of my job to stay on top of those things. But I don't know if people will combine. Usually, I don't know. When you choose one thing, it's like if you have Android and like you like Google and you will go with that. And again, there's a big important thing to mention here is that being in the US, we have all of them. If you're in the market, like in a country where like they are not all available, then that's I think like you mentioned that the Google Assistant and is the only one available in the Netherlands and Dutch. It will be hard like when Alexa devices enter the market. If people are satisfied with Google Assistant, it will be hard like to win those market shares back. So I think like there was that. People don't like change, so when they are satisfied with something, they don't change. It's
So let's talk a bit more about Merkle and what they do with the voice in the US, because you're offering a product called Voice Active Listening.
Correct.
What does it do?
Right. So years ago, years ago. Sounds like it was a long time ago. It's not, but like 3 years ago, when we started trying to understand what would be the impact of voice search, real searches, like on our clients, like retail, e-commerce, which again it's pretty limited. I don't think people search a lot for like products yet. They search for again local information or general facts on their assistant. When we started looking into that, quickly. I mean, us at Merkle, but also like in the industry, other agencies and other experts, like people looking into those new things, they quickly find out that what is called like a feature snippet on search result, like from a screen. So some also called answer zero, number zero, or quick answer. It's usually the box at the top that you see when you search for something that Google is confident enough to really promote that result at the top. So we quickly found out, like as the rest of the industry, that more often than not, the voice result, the one result returned by a voice assistant without a screen would be that quick answer. So it's coming. I think quick answer can be defined by like two things. It could be that feature snippet really that is coming from any website. So the voice assistant will tell you according to Wikipedia and blah 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 the answer. Or it could be like such a strong fact that Google doesn't need to tell you the source of that. If you ask who's the president, the voice assistant or Google search. Google.com will show you a result without telling you where it's from. It's a fact, and that is the knowledge graph. So I think when we talk about quick answers, it could be an answer from a website with the source being cited, or something from the knowledge graph. In both cases, that's what you see on the screen on Google.com is usually what the Google Assistant will return. And it turned out that like we had little to no data anyway around the voice result. So that was not a bad thing, actually, that we can start tracking or anticipate or at least guess what would be the voice answer, because it turns out it's also the visual answer on Google.com. But it's not all, because we don't get like the data in terms of like the search volume and how much people are searching with their voice. The only thing, especially when it's not on their phone or desktop, because that data is not recorded anywhere. It's not returned in Google Search Console platform, where you can see how much people are searching for terms and how much your website is visible in those search results. So it's really hard to get that information. What the voice active listening product does, it's a technology that we developed that is not like rocket science. It's just putting like available like tools that exist together to simplify the process, and on top of that adding a lot of engineering and analysis. But the idea is to gather the information that the Google Assistant return from the real voice result based on a query, and then translating that information into textual content that we can also compare for the same query to what is happening on a screen device on google.com, making sure that response is the same, understanding like if it's again from the knowledge graph, like a fact, or if it's coming from a website. If it's coming from a website, is that website our client? Is it a competitor? How can we improve? And so we are looking at that particular page. If it's our client, that's great. If it's not our client, what is the competitor doing better in terms of like on-page optimization and going back to classic SEO optimization techniques or recommendation. So really analyzing what is the result, and if it's a competition, do we do better than them?
So the voice active listening tool is more about defining opportunities for voice then, and see where the opportunities are to gain featured snippets and getting the answer?
Correct. So what's important to note is that we do not know really, again, because of the lack of data, we do not really understand the full extent of the opportunities that exist. The good news is that anything that you would do to potentially improve that visibility on voice-only devices is no different than what you would do to improve your visibility on normal search result. So it's not a waste of time. So it's basically this idea of like, why not doing it? Because it's not against general best practices, or it's no different than what you would do to improve like your organic performance on normal results like on search engines.
So you would say that the voice search strategy is more an extension of your traditional organic search than a whole new strategy?
Yeah, I think it's simply not simply, but it is an extension.
Because I also think a lot of people are still thinking that they have to rewrite all their content on a website to make it more speakable.
No, I don't think so. I think like the reason the content should be rewritten, it's not about really voice. It's about making it like more natural. And that's something that Google analyze, like really process that information. And I think writing content for the web has always been like writing content for users. Like people have said that, like Google representative have said that for years, don't write too much about this or that, like just write good content, right? That was always the recommendation, and it's a good one because that's true. It's not about like keyword stuffing your content and like being over the top here. It's about writing like useful, relevant content for your user in a way that people can quickly understand, it's easy to read, they can relate to. So I think, again, that it's good practice for the web in general, either it's like a voice or classic search results.
And the featured snippets are really important to gain the answer for voice search. What do you think are best practices to gain the featured snippet? Because you cannot turn a switch and be the featured snippet. Google will choose who's the most suitable for the answer.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, there's two things. Getting the feature snippet for a particular query is extremely valuable. I think we've seen that the concern when they were released is like people are not going to actually click on the result because they might get the answer there. It turned out that the real world data like showed the opposite. People are still getting more click, more visibility. So best practices for that is really how the content is structured on the page, and not really about structured data, which is like schema markup, something completely different that powers like rich result, like the stars, the ratings that you see like in the result. So structured data, just a quick note on that, it can help. It can definitely help like eventually to get feature snippet for a simple reason. It helps Google understand the content on the page. So, but technically, it's the feature snippet is not powered or based on the structured data. So it's always a good idea to mark up your content with schema. Works great for Bing as well, for the search engine. So definitely something to always think about and do if possible. But really the feature snippet, it's about how the content is structured on the page. So going back to classic semantic HTML and using like proper headings and extremely like explicit relevant questions, maybe in the title, in the H1, the heading one, things like that will perfectly match the user intent in the query. So that's why you see a lot of like best practices and people rewriting a little bit their content instead of having like clean your shoes, it's how to clean your shoes or something like that. A lot of how-to that have been added to headings and titles because that's what people are looking for. And maybe that's what they might ask their Google Assistant that now have screens. There was like new Google products like or Alexa product where you have a screen. So the answer may be a YouTube video and things like that. So and people might ask, instead of typing like how-to, they might also just, hey Google, like how do I
show me how,
show me how, like a recipe or something like that. There's a lot of use cases.
So like the structure of the page is the most important factor to gain a feature snippet.
And on that, there's also different type of feature snippet, but only one is really appropriate and relevant for voice search or voice result. Feature snippet can be like a paragraph, and that's the one that really we try to emphasize or like focus on, because lists and tables, they're great like feature snippets. So you can have like a product description and product information in a table on a visual result on google.com or like Bing. But that type of feature snippet is not ideal for voice because the voice assistant like is not gonna just read a table or go through a list. Sometimes it's not really ideal. And so paragraphs turns out to be like the best feature snippet to be translated to a voice result. We've seen like Dr. Pete at Moz has done like extensive research on that. And he has even found out that Google sometime will transform like a visual list or table feature snippet into a paragraph on their own to make it like available for the Google Assistant to respond as a voice result when there is no screen. So interesting things that Google are doing on their own too, from the content of the page that is a table or a list to really the feature snippet and turning that into something that is more suitable for a voice result.
So they are generating new text based on the input from a website. That's
well, not new text, but they will change the way it's displayed. So in the past, if it was a list, they're going to create a paragraph instead of showing a list, because this way they can also easily use that as the voice result.
So the bullets will become commas, or do they make it the... Oh, wow, okay.
Yep. And how do you think that will develop in the future? Because right now the feature snippet is mostly the answer for voice search. Now we have the structured data script, the speakable markup, for example, in the beta version. Do you think Google will transform the content on the website automatically towards voice instead of bringing it first towards the featured snippet and then to voice?
I think so. Yeah, it is, as you mentioned, like the speakable markup is still in beta. I'm eager to know what's going to happen. I put it in place in a couple of websites just to see when it starts working or not. If there is something happening. So far, I've not seen anything. But yeah, I don't really know those limited documentation for now on this markup. But yeah, it could be. I think it will be treated more as a hint, than a directive. I think it's the idea of Google will decide what is relevant, but sometimes it's helpful to point them in the right direction. So if your page is the authority, the right page to return for a particular query, and Google has chosen like a section of the page as the result, and you would like to, I don't know, tailor that a little bit better, using the speakable markup might be the way to go to tell Google, okay, this is great, like we are the voice result, but maybe this part of the page is actually what we would like to see like in the result. And again, a hint, because they might not have, they won't have to respect that, but that might be useful for them to understand the webmaster thought about that and created like a paragraph or a piece of text like that would be the appropriate like speakable result. I don't know. It's all like assumptions at this point.
Yeah.
But
That's the whole thing with voice search right now. It's there is little data to prove that you're actually effective, I think, because the benefits are clearly indirect right now, where at SEO you see that your organic search on your website, that's something you can measure, is going up, and therefore we assume that also for voice it's going up. One of the things that currently is missing, I think, is the ability to go from a search result, like an answer, towards an action or a voice control. So if you're asking where does Avengers Endgame play, you're not actually wondering where it's playing. You'd like to know if you can get a ticket to the cinema and whether you're still on time. And having just the answer is not going to satisfy your need as a user.
You can actually do that. I with those partnerships with like I know in the US it's called like Fandango. I don't know if it's an international company, but like if you ask like the Google Assistant when the movie, like the adventure movie is playing, and it will tell you, okay, it's playing like at this cinema near you, it's 5 miles away. Would you like me to buy a ticket for you? The assistant will ask you that, or something similar to that, or you can actually complete the action of buying the tickets.
Is that a connection between the first answer pulled from the database of Google towards the voice action of a certain company?
I think so. I think they will put like things together, like and really develop really that continuity. And I think Microsoft does that really well as well. Like they do a lot of like really creating assistants that will do things for you before you ask them to do it. I think that's really the goal for them, to anticipate like your next step. And for movie tickets are perfect example, because if you ask like where and when the movie is playing, you clearly have an intent to purchase a ticket. So they might like provide that information, or like ask you if you want the assistant to do that for you right away.
Well, that's a slippery slope. So if this is something that Google decides for you as a cinema brand, you're tied to, I don't know, Fandango for selling the tickets. Yeah. And it's very much the same with, I don't know, playing radio. Currently, you're tied to TuneIn as a media brand, and there is no way around it other than building your personal Google action, where people need to invoke your action to listen to the radio, but you lose out all the controls.
Well, I'm not exactly sure about radio, but I know for like music services or like or movie services, you can choose the default in the app. So for example, like you can specify Spotify or like Google Music. So when you say play that song, it will automatically go to the default service that you've chose.
So that's for on-demand radio. But if you'd like to listen to, I don't know, NPR radio, if you're in the US, that's something that's going to go through TuneIn. I know that BBC has lots of issues with Google on doing this, because they say, well, if they'd like to pull the plug, we're out. That's not the way we like to work. But I wasn't aware that Google is already offering this follow-up action.
Well, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay,
I will have to check on that, but like I'm fairly certain that it's something that you can do. Or at the very least, you can follow up with that action, and they will know what the context of it.
I think if that works well, that will be a huge step for the voice industry, and also the beneficial part of voice search, linking towards the voice action, where you can actually buy something or make a reservation or something. That will be really great.
Yeah, I think it's really specific to a few verticals. I think one of the great example in initial partnership was between Alexa and Domino Pizza, and I think like that was pretty impressive. That was one of the first thing where you have a Domino account, and so your credit card, your address, it's already in the system, and you just say, hey Alexa, just order my pizza, my favorite pizza, and done, because everything, they know who you are, your credit card information, where you live, and what is your favorite pizza from Domino. And like, that's it. Alexa will say, okay, it's on its way. Yeah. And the pizza will just show up. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
So again, pizzas, like movie tickets, I don't think it will really work for like everything, but like it could definitely work for like pizza, sandwiches, like any type of delivery, like maybe like with the Uber Eats and
more like the repetitive transactions.
Definitely, I think that's where it's the fastest, like where you already have like you repeat the same transaction. I think it might be a little bit different for like when you're shopping online, you're browsing, you look at different options. I don't think if you're not 100% sure of what you want, it's a voice device like voice assistant without any screen is not gonna help there. Or you're not gonna buy like just like a new MacBook Pro, like asking Alexa to do it. It's not like it's a big transaction. Even though you know exactly what you want, you might not just all of a sudden say, hey, Alexa, by the way, order me like the latest like iPhone. I don't think that people will just do that.
Not right now, I guess, but I booked most of this trip. We're currently in Berlin through my phone. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would spend like anything over 10 euros on the phone, I would have said, well, likely not. But now it's quite common.
Yeah. Actually, there was like a few examples where kids have like ordered, stuff on Amazon through Alexas and devices, and parents were kind of like freaking out a little bit because they were, just the Higgs box or whatever, like, expensive product that you can add to the shopping list and have them deliver, just with your voice, and a 5-year-old can do it.
Let's round up the show. I heard lots of interesting things coming by. You talked about some extensive research that has been done around this. So Max, if people would like to know more about you or the stuff you do at Merkle, is there any place they should visit, or how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. We do have a website called technicalseo.com, so pretty easy and straightforward. That's a place where you can find a lot of like free SEO tools that really usable and quite useful. We on the same website we also host like a podcast named SEO in the Lab, hosted by my colleague Alexis Sanders, as well as a blog where you can read a lot about like what we do, what we experience with our clients, and things like that, as well as slideshare presentations that we've done like on SEO. So a good way to see what the SEO team is up to is to go on that website.
Oh, that's great. This is the end of this episode of The Space Race. The Space Race is a weekly show, so we'll be back next week with another episode on voice and search. I'd like to thank Max for joining in. Thank you, Max.
Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sam, for having me.
Yeah, my co-host, Tim.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, great. We'll be back next week. If you liked the show, do subscribe in Spotify, iTunes, or your favorite podcast application. Give us a rating, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Space Race. See ya.
Bye-bye.